Hello, everyone. I'm Scott Freymuller with The Knot, again with my co-host, Shelly Netco. Today, we're going to talk about the power of no. The power of no.
No.
No. No means no.
Eh.
So, man, we had today's been an amazing day. We had, Amanda's Hope in here, and that was just amazing. And it made me think, of everything she's given back, and because, I mean, it's all for good reason, right? But you got to sometimes say no. I mean, sometimes you're so, like, emotionally drained or whatever's going on in your life, that's a word you need to use, right? Like, no excuses, no, hey, I'm sorry, no, whatever. You just got to, nope,
Right. Well,
not doing it.
Which is her version of going to the spa, getting in bed, pulling the covers, and you
Right.
just can't do it for a couple of days. And
Yeah.
that's a no.
That was just an amazing story. And now is even more amazing, than what she's doing now, which totally chilled me out. I'm not hyper right now. So
You're not hyper?
Yeah, I will be in a few seconds.
Okay.
But the point of this, we talk about self-esteem, we talk about self-worth, we talk about boundaries, all those different things. And, a lot of times when we're in those narcissistic relationships, it's hard to say no. Like, you want to say yes, right? You want that affirmation, you want the approval, you want to be part of the crew, right? You want to be picked for the kickball team, that type of thing. And sometimes you just got to say no. Like, if it doesn't work for you, just say no. You don't have to make an excuse. You don't have to say, I'm sorry. You just say, no.
Right.
Yeah, no, I can't do that. That's it. No more, nothing less.
I don't think it necessarily has to be a toxic relationship kind of thing. I think there are, a lot of us are people pleasers. Mm-hmm. And, whether that comes from how we were conditioned, how we were raised, what we grew up around as far as seeking validation and whatnot. But oftentimes there's a lack of boundaries in that environment. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, I think that we don't learn that no's okay.
Right.
And then we carry that into our adult relationships. And then when we stay those people pleasers, which is nice to please people. Mm-hmm. It's nice to want to help people.
Sure.
But when we do it with the wrong motive, and we are validation seeking, or we completely sell ourselves out and put ourselves absolutely last, and we have no self-care to a point where we give, and we have nothing left. And, we become stressed out, we become sick, we become just unable to serve the people who are the most important in our family, because we're doing things for the PTA, we're doing things for the kids' soccer thing,
Right.
And it's because we want everybody to make sure that they're aware how we are helpful.
Right.
But
right.
we aren't taking care of what's most important, which is ourselves and our family sometimes. And those are the, the super pleasers, I like to call them, which is they're great people, but they are failing to see that it's okay to say no and draw a healthy boundary to take care of yourself and what matters.
Mm-hmm. And there it goes back to that, like you said, a healthy boundary, right? You have to prioritize, and you're always prioritizing, your relationship first, and then your kids, and then or God, family, whatever.
Sure.
But everybody has their different priorities, and you just need to make sure you keep those in order. And sometimes things get out of whack when you're saying yes all the time, or you're wishy-washy on your, I can't really do that. I'm really sorry. Maybe next time, that type of thing. It gives people the opportunity to talk you into it, or say, hey, well, maybe if I do this or that or whatever, then maybe you'll do it,
Right.
But no is powerful, and it's important to be able to say that. Whether you're in business or personal life or whatever, just be like, no.
It is.
And the people around you to respect that. Well, why? Well, I just don't want to, period. That's it.
And that usually happens if you come from that place where you haven't had boundaries, and you've been doing everything for everyone, and then one day something happens. Usually you get to this point where you realize you can't do it, or you do need to stay in bed and pull those covers up and just call it,
Right.
And then when you do draw a boundary with people, usually like, what is wrong with her?
Right.
Or inside, like internally, as you do it, you're like, oh my God, I sound like such a bitch. And you start to question yourself, because it's all tied to your self-esteem.
Right.
And it's tied to the confidence that you believe that you do or don't have, and you're worried what other people are going to think about you, and then you start the self-judgment cycle. And that's where that boundary thing comes from. It's just like not being able to do it because you're worried about what everyone's going to think.
Yeah. We wrote this down, our script. It says the power of no and the power of yes. So we said a while ago, we were talking about, relationships where you ask yourself a question like, hey, am I in? And some people are like F no or F yes. It's one or the other.
Right.
It's not like an in-between thing, you know? And I think about stuff in your life that it's either that, it's one of those. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. If you want to take on a new venture, it's either F no or F yes. Like there's no, well, maybe if you either know it or you don't. Or you either want to do it or you don't.
I think some people get caught in analysis paralysis.
Of deciding on what they want.
Whether it's fear or anxiety, or they're not a risk taker, or they get worked up into the hypothetical outcomes that may never transpire, which is what we were talking about earlier. But it's that just that unknowing, and some people just get so wrapped up in the unknown that they literally get stuck in analysis paralysis. And sometimes then, in doing that, the decisions take care of themselves. Like life will continue to play out as you stay on the fence.
Right.
We used to have this funny thing my husband and I would talk about, because he would get stuck in analysis paralysis. He was an engineer, he had high anxiety, and when it would come to emotional decision making, he would have a problem with it.
Right.
And one of his friends one time was talking to him about something, and we had people over for a party, and we were laughing about it because as his friend was talking to him, whatever the situation was, he's like, are you going to sit on the fence post? So it's just like, is it comfortable with that fence post up your ass? Like, you're going to make a decision at some point.
Right.
And so that became our joke. It was like every time you get stuck in analysis paralysis, it was like, how's that fence post feel?
Yeah, like how's it going to work?
Yeah, but not everybody, I think everybody has their gut instinct and they have a feeling, but it's the people who have that anxiety or the fear of the unknown or stepping over whatever those potential outcomes are and taking that risk is where they get stuck in that analysis paralysis. And the definitive yes or no is not as easy for them.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think of a time. It just reminds me, when you were talking about that, I'm thinking of you're driving down the road.
Always.
And you're always driving.
You're always driving down the road.
And somebody says, hey, what do you want to do tonight?
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't know. What do you want to do?
Right.
Like if somebody asks you the question, hey, what do you want to do tonight? You answer the question. Right. And then you can either say, that sounds good, or yeah, let's try something else.
Sure. Or where do you want to eat?
Yeah, I don't know. Where do you want to eat?
Right.
No. They just somebody asks you a question, so answer it. Where do you want to eat? Oh, I'm thinking. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It goes. I think. I don't think all this stuff wraps back into self-worth, self-esteem, all those kinds of things, and the power no and the power yes, right? So when we talk about the power yes, I think of something like, hey, do you want to go? I don't know. Do you want to go skateboarding?
Sure.
Okay, let's try it out.
Right.
Or do you want to, ride a scooter? All right, let's try it out. Yes, let's go. And that's one of the things that's so funny when we're out doing our homework and talking with people, just whatever, running around, and it's as I walk around, I'm thinking, oh, this would be fun. Like last night when I went to the country bar.
Sure.
I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. I'm gonna go dancing. Well, in my mind, I'm like, yes, done. I'm not like,
Sure.
well, I don't know. I make a decision and you go, That's really what it's about. It's about making a decision and knowing and being confident in your decision and not wishy-washy back and forth. And I remember there was times in my life where I was wishy-washy back and forth because I wasn't sure of my decision making and I wasn't sure of, I guess, my confidence level wasn't high.
You didn't have the confidence in your decisions because you had been questioning yourself because of the environment you were in for several years.
Correct, right? Well, not just because of that, right? Just because of a lot of things.
Right, a lot of things.
But I think that's I wouldn't say a red flag necessarily, would you? Like I guess what I'm talking about is somebody gets really wrapped up into doing extra things at work or, I know volunteering, like we're volunteering essentially right now, but if you get so excessive that becomes like your everything, then you know what I'm saying? There's other things in your life, there's other silos that need attention.
Sure.
Like your family and your work and all those different things.
Right.
And all those things need to be managed and taken care of and all that. And that's, I think if you're not doing that, if you're super locked into one thing, then that's a little bit of a red flag. Like, hey, what's up? Like, why do you need approval in this area so bad? Like, what's going on? You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Yeah. So I think that's where like if you say no, I think almost like your initial reaction of yes or no is almost dead on usually. Seems like for me.
I think, I mean, I personally believe in just listening to my intuition.
And it's yes or no.
I think and I think what a lot of people do is they fail to recognize the power in what that initial message is with their intuition, and then they fight against it, or try to reason with it,
Right.
or try to come up with reasons to prove it wrong, or a lot of people get locked into the idea of a pros and cons list, right?
Right.
They're like, oh, I need to make a big decision. I'm going to make a pros and cons list. So, you get the tablet out and you do your list and you got your side by side. And some people think they need to have the same amount of pros as they do cons. Like, what is that about? And when you think about knowing what's good for you, it's knowing. It's not making a logical list.
Right.
It's not doing a side by side, apples to apples comparison of yeses and nos.
That's kind of like overanalyzing it.
Absolutely.
I think so too.
And what you do in that process is you take away from what you intuitively knew from the beginning. And usually what happens is you have an intuitive knowing, and then you start bouncing it off of people. You talk to your husband, you talk to your wife, you talk to your sister, you talk to your cousin, you talk to your neighbor, you talk to your daughter, you talk to your son, whatever. And you start gathering data, you start gathering input, and as soon as you start doing that, it waters down your intuitive knowing. And then when you do that, you get further and further away from your decision.
From what you should have done in the first place.
What you should have done in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which brings me back to that F yes and F no.
True.
See how I'm cleaning up my language? It's pretty good, huh? But the thing with that is, I do think that actually applies, because it makes you make a decision, and it makes you automatic, because you know the answer. You absolutely know the answer. But we play these games in our mind, right, to go back and forth, and or we bring it back to relationships, or we bring it back to something at work, or we bring it back to a traumatic event, or whatever. Did that bother me? Well, yes or no. It's not like, well, kind of did. I'm not really sure. Or, hey, are you having a good day? No, not really. You know what I'm saying? Like, just be that. It goes back to honesty. It goes back to, being assertive, which is important, right? And when you communicate with people, you're looking in their eye, and you know what you're talking about, and you don't have to say you're sorry.
Right.
Like, think of how many times a day in a conversation we say we're sorry. Thousands.
A big amount.
Like,
and more so,
all the time.
More so for women than men.
But why?
We acquiesce.
Why are you sorry? Like, what are we sorry for?
But it's how we're conditioned and raised.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so
Honestly.
sorry. I don't want. No, that doesn't really work for me. I'm so sorry. Like,
I mean, go back
what are you sorry
to
for?
go back to the sharing your toys in the sandbox routine.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're playing and girls and boys, and this is just historically, and it's just a generalization. I think girls are taught to be nice and share, and it's just more so a girl thing than it is a boy thing. And also, we're taught to not hurt other people's feelings as females. It's just not what we do, and we're a little more sensitive, so we know when we do.
So yeah, I see what you're saying. That makes
So
sense.
because of that, that's something we carry, and that's why boundaries are a little more difficult for females, I think, especially if that's how they're conditioned, that's how they're raised. So then we become big girls, and we've still got that boundary thing. And if we haven't been raised in a boundary situation, then it's something that's foreign to us. Then we have to learn boundaries. We have to understand what healthy boundaries are. And we have to understand we're not being a bitch because we're just setting a healthy boundary. And
Because you're just saying no.
Yeah.
Is it really a gender thing now, though?
No.
Do you think so?
No, but
I'm not trying to call that out like,
no.
But is it? Do you think?
It's definitely true.
Or do you think it's the same?
It's true for men too, but for females, I think boundaries are more difficult. I think they are, and especially being moms, I think it's even more so because we're just more of an open book for fair game and taking on everybody's stuff and everything.
Right.
More so than dads, not all the time. So I just want to call that out, that I'm not a genderist or anything,
No.
but it's just being a mom and having a lot of kids and knowing what that was like. It's just a thing.
Do you think if you're an empathetic person, it's hard for you to say no?
Definitely more so. I think there's components of, if there's a matrix of what makes it more difficult to create boundaries or have boundaries, that definitely adds to the matrix for sure.
I think so too.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing, like the state of mind, we go back to saying being grateful in that state of mind, If you're in a good place, it's easier to say no. It's easier to say yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? Like if you're healthy, I don't want to say that. It's not about being healthy. It's about just being in a good place, being present, right? And then there's not other things going on in your head, and there's not like distractions or whatever. It does. I think you make decisions easier, faster, more affirmative, more, you know what I'm saying, like with confidence.
Sure.
And that's the interesting thing. And have you ever noticed how if you do say no, like if you're not just always giving things away, people respect you more.
Yes.
They absolutely respect you more, right? And we talked earlier with, I think it was with Destry, about how if you're always giving, then people can take advantage of that, right? And it's interesting to you almost sort of build your problems, sort of. Do you ever know somebody that says yes all the time and then they get pissed because they're like super overworked and they're taxed and they're like
exhausted,
burned out and exhausted and like, oh my God, nobody helps me, nobody gets back.
Get a break,
you're like, hey, you put yourself in that spot because you say yes all the time. Now this is everybody's problem because you can't say no.
I remember when I did that, my kids were young, and I never volunteered with school stuff, ever. I was busy. I was an entrepreneur. I had,
you had 5 kids.
5 kids. My husband's traveling all over the world, gone 70% of the time. It was just like one year, I don't know why, I lost my mind apparently, and I was like, this is the year I'm going to volunteer for the PTA. And my kids looked at me and they're like, why? And I was like, I don't know. I think I need to do it. So I did. So I was on the planning committee for, I don't know, carnival and this and that and all this stuff. And I remember sitting in the meetings wanting to kick my own ass, wondering what in the heck I was doing. And knowing...
Why? Because you're so burned out?
Because I was like, I had all this stuff to do. I was like in the middle of planning like some major sporting events, and I just knew all this stuff I had to do at home. I was trying to arrange rides for my kids to get to all their sporting events and everything. And then at the same time, I had to like take all this stuff that I had to do with the the carnival and the all these fundraisers and everything, and go and do that. And I just remember thinking, what am I doing? I never should have done it.
Right.
But I did it thinking, oh, I was talking to this mom, and all these other moms are doing it, and I've never done it, and these are my youngest kids, and I didn't do it for the older kids. Blah blah blah. Self talk. Oh my gosh, biggest mistake I ever made. But it's a perfect example of doing it, feeling resentful, feeling exhausted, feeling stressed out, having regret about it.
Yeah.
And it was a huge mistake, and I should have just sat there with myself and said, okay, really, this sounds like a good idea, but can you do something else? Can you donate something? Like this is all you have, and do whatever you can to not put yourself in a place where I'm selling my family out, and my kids are like, Mom, really, when you coming home? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally do. Yeah.
So it was a perfect example, and I definitely lived that one out.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm sure there was a thing the other day, similar, but not, because I didn't join it. But the homeowner association. Oh my God! Like that's hard. Those people are saints.
Yes.
Right. So you're doing this thing for free.
Right.
And you're thinking, oh, I'm going to help my community, but really you're taking on a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Because people, it's like their house, their home. Like they want things a certain way. They want the landscape to be perfect. They want like the roads to be perfect and the trees to be like, holy crap. And we have a community center and all this stuff, and people are complaining about like how much money we spend. And not we, because I'm not on that. I didn't do it.
Right.
But they're like, hey, would you want to be on there because you're in construction and da 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 da? And I was like, nope. Yeah, and I thought about it though.
See?
I was like,
you had a moment.
I want to help my community. I want to be part of the community. But then I think about all the things that go with that.
Yeah.
And I think everybody goes in with the right intention. But then they get wrapped up in all this stuff because everybody has a different motive. And, I want this and it's about me or whatever. And there's so many things going on with a situation like that and so many different dynamics with different personalities. And you really don't have any power to do anything. I mean, you do, but you don't.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And then you're like in the limelight and people like you. I just like, oh my God. Like I wouldn't want to. That doesn't sound fun, right?
A lot. Yeah.
So those people, I mean, you say yes to something like that, you have to realize like what you're taking on.
Sure.
Which goes back to being present, right? And you say no to something like that, and you're like, whew.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like you're saying, you know what I mean? Like I hate to be. Here's the other thing where I think it's important is that. So say we put you back in that situation, right? And you're on the PTA, and you say yes, and you're a couple weeks in, you're like, this isn't working for me. I think you need to say, hey, this isn't working for me.
Right.
Like I can't do this. I'm not going to be effective in this position.
Sure.
Doing what I'm doing, especially from a volunteer standpoint. It's okay to say, hey, this isn't working for me.
Yeah.
Like I can't manage my family, and I didn't realize how much work this would be. I'll stay until we find somebody to replace me or whatever, but I want to let you guys know, like, this is not working. And that's a form of saying no too, right? Or like in a relationship.
But
or
where I
whatever.
was at the time, that was not me.
No, I understand.
That was not me.
Yeah,
Where
and
I am now, all day.
Right, but even me too.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be like, oh, you know, when I was in the fire department, like, oh, do you want to teach fire academy? And I'm thinking like, holy shit, that's a lot of work. But yes, because then I can be cool. You know what I mean? Like I get recognition for that. And honestly, I think the second one that I did it for recognition. I didn't do it because I wanted to do it because I love my job and stuff. But I'm thinking, oh boy, this is going to be taxing. This is a lot of work.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
for essentially no. I mean, I don't want to say no benefit, but that was a volunteer thing.
Sure.
But with a massive amount of work because it didn't change like my, you know, compensation or anything. I didn't, you know, I don't know. That's a bad way to look at it. I need to reframe that. I'm going to use your word and reframe that. I guess what I'm saying is it added a whole ton of work
Right.
without like a obvious benefit. And it took away a lot from the family side. You know, I was
Right.
married at the time.
And that's where the question is that not cost benefit, but the time investment benefit and the reward.
Yeah.
So it's like somewhere in there is your answer.
Right.
But you also don't know until you get into it sometimes, right?
Yeah. It's also okay to be like, hey, you know what? Give me some time to think about this.
Yeah.
You don't have to answer right then either. You could say, hey, you know what? Is it cool if I give you a call tomorrow? I'll let you know. Let me think about it a little bit. Right? That's totally cool. You're like, oh,
Sure.
okay, that's great.
Sure.
Then you're present. You know, you're going to think about it. You're going to evaluate the situation and make sure that whatever this opportunity is or whatever the decision is the right decision. And it's good for you and good for the, you know, good for Gander or whatever you want to say. But yeah, I think it's critical that presence, you know, like being present in the moment, knowing who you are, having that confidence, all those things is huge in that, right?
A lot of it is self-awareness, I think. Absolutely.
I think it is too.
Yeah.
I think it is too.
The
But
self-awareness, the self-confidence,
yeah.
and just the understanding of, I don't know, a situation as it comes up.
Yeah.
You know, if someone's sick or, you know, somebody needs help and
Yeah.
I have the time and the capacity and I can do something to help them out.
Right.
Then yeah, that's one thing.
And that could be a form of manipulation too, right? Like if there's a time in my life where I was in a spot where I just said yes to pretty much anything just to get that affirmation, especially in a toxic relationship. You're like, okay, like what can I do? Like tell me what I can do to make this right. You know what I mean? And you're like, yes, yes, yes. You're almost saying, hey, ask me to do something for you, and you already know the answer's gonna be yes.
Right.
So just abuse the living shit out of me, right? Because you don't feel like you're worthy or,
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
Well, but at that point, if you're in a relationship like that your partner knows who you are, what you're going to do.
Oh, they're gonna work you.
And they know that you're absolutely
Right.
a doormat.
And here's the funny thing is when you start changing that, and it's not just about relationships. This could be a work relationship. This could be a
Friendships.
friendship or whatever. But once you hit that point of okay, I can't say yes all the time, and you're like, no, that doesn't work for me. They're like, whoa, wait a second. Well, what happened? Why are you in such a bad mood today?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? They flip
Absolutely.
that back on you, and you have
Well,
to just
because
be.
it's a different behavior and they're not used to it.
Yeah, because they're used to, not they, but you know what I'm saying. It takes two in every situation.
Whoever the person
but
is
yeah.
in a relationship, whether it's a relationship,
Yeah.
romantic or a friendship or whatever,
Sure.
or even if it's a coworker type thing. I mean, it doesn't matter. But when there's two people involved, when one person changes their behavior, the other person is always alarmed or surprised or. It obviously makes them question something like what's wrong with you. Usually
Right.
they're not going to go what's wrong with me.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And especially if you're the giver.
Oh gosh, yeah. It's like a flip-flop manipulation thing or whatever. Yeah, it's an interesting deal how that whole dynamic plays out. You know how that works. But there's no buts. It's just it's a simple.
Yeah, there's no
I think this is a pretty clear.
It is.
Deal, and there's not an opinion either. This is fact.
Right.
Like this, that you can't really argue
Sure.
the importance of being able to do that either way.
Sure.
You know, and then the importance of taking time. So there's a yes, there's a no, and there's a let me think about it until boom, I'll give you an answer tomorw by noon or whatever you want to do. Doesn't have to. You know.
Well, and I think something else we were talking about was like right before we started to roll was how a lot of people I think who don't have those healthy boundaries move to that transition place. So say you ask me to do something, and instead of me saying, "Oh, sorry, I can't," I give you like 5 excuses why I can't, or I
Right.
think I need to come up with why I can't.
Right.
And it's because I don't have the confidence in just being able to say no politely.
Right.
Or say no with grace.
Right.
And put myself first, or whether it's my mental health or just my time, or I'm exhausted, or I have other priorities, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I feel like I need to give you something back in an answer.
Not always.
Instead of just saying, no, sorry,
But you don't even
I'm
have
not
to sorry.
free.
You just say no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not free.
Hey,
Or,
can you do
"I
this
can't
on
do it."
Saturday? No.
No, I can't. Yeah.
That's it. You don't need to say sorry.
Thanks for asking. I can't.
Yeah.
Right.
Or not even that. You just say no. I can't.
Yeah.
It's funny
I
how
would
like
never, I would never do
we
that.
like cushion it. Like we like.
Well, I
kinda-
cushion everything.
Yeah.
But
so
I'm a cushioner.
and I do too.
I'm a
I think I do
cushioner.
too. Here's another example. I was just sitting here when we were talking. Is we, we hang out like in this co-ed group of people.
Yeah.
And like we're all friends, and that's a yes/no boundary thing too.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we talked about this many times. Is that if guy and a girl can have friends and they have healthy boundaries, right? They're honest. They have boundaries. You know what I'm saying? Like
Sure. Respectful.
respectful, but also saying yes or no. Like I don't know, last night, I don't know. I don't pick up on signs or anything, but I think a couple of the girls liked me, and I think a couple of guys liked you. And if somebody would have said, hey, do you want to go out? I'd have been like, no, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in friends. Because there was nobody there that I was interested in. You know what I'm saying? But then you're like, hey, no, I don't want to go out, but I'd like to be friends or whatever. Then they're like, oh, okay. Instead of, if you couldn't say no, if you weren't in that spot,
Right.
you know what I mean? You would be like playing this game, like this massage game. Then there's drama and BS and like, does he like me, not like me? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I wouldn't know it anyways because I don't know how to wink.
No,
Remember
you're
the whole
like-
winking thing. But like, there's a few guys talking to you, and that you could tell like they were interested and they were engaging and all that kind of stuff. And if you would have gotten asked out, you just said yes or no or whatever, but you wouldn't have been like, well, I don't know. Well, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
In those situations, it's very cut and dry, and I think in every situation it's cut and dry because you know what you want. So just do it, right? And be real and be honest and be present and all those things to be healthy.
Sure. Agree.
You do?
What?
Wow, that's cool. You agreed with me?
Yeah, I totally
Heck
agree
yeah,
with
that's
you.
cool. All right.
I totally agree with you.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's like a first, huh?
No, it's not. I mean, that's the way it should be. That's the way it should be. There's too many people, and we've had this discussion before. There's too many people who send mixed signals and are afraid to either draw a line or hurt someone's feelings or just be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not right.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't make sense, and it wastes people's time, and it can get to a place where it's awkward or
Right.
misleading, uncomfortable, whatever it is. So whether somebody's interested or not interested, it just should be a thing.
Right. I agree
It
with
should
that
be
100%.
right out there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That was good.
I think so.
I think we covered that pretty
That's
pretty
definitely
well.
a yes no.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
that's
the power
I
of
mean,
yes
yes.
or the power
Did we
of
do
no?
it? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Everybody, thanks for watching The Knot. Scott Freymuller and Shelly Netco. Appreciate your time. Have a great day.